Guys, behavior just dropped. Killer data, pick rates, win rates, all of it. So we're going to go over it and find out which killers' behavior have as the top performing killers. But before I do, let me address the elephant in the room, or actually just the room in general. I have moved houses. I've moved in with my girlfriend, Claire. I'm now standing up. I've got a standing desk. So in case you're wondering why the setup's changed, that's it. I wanted to get that out of the way. Let's go over this. This is the kill rates by killer and MMR released in September of 2022. Behavior released this post as well as some graphics on Twitter with lots of numbers and pictures and also the raw statistics as well. Now, I figured we could go over all that, but that's kind of boring. The better way to do this is actually just to open up a tier list and find out which killer behavior themselves rate as number one based on the kill rates for Dead by Daylight. And as we can clearly see, Sadako is S tier. I've been saying it since the beginning. Sadako, S tier killer. No. Wow. This is genuinely the tier list for highest performing killers at all MMRs. You have killers like Pinhead performing really well, which actually is no surprise. I feel like personally, Pinhead is a very strong killer. You have killers like Sadako at S tier, which is just doesn't make any sense to me. Wesker, you know, very good. Pig, outperforming most people's expectations. And of course, Nurse needs some buffs because she's in the D tier. Now, something to keep in mind is that at all MMRs, you have people who play killers and stop playing killers, who play one game of killer, who don't play killer very often. Maybe they've just downloaded the game, played a game of Nurse, and then quit the game. So sometimes the statistics do get skewed. So instead of just looking at that, we can also look at the tier list based on top MMR. This is the top 5% of MMR. And as you can see, it's a little bit more standardized. Wesker remains in S tier. Killers like Plague and Dredge, who are considered strong, end up in the A+ tier. And then you have killers like Nurse and Spirit and Blight in the A tier. But surprisingly, Sadako's still maintaining a very high rating on this tier list. Now, you may be wondering what's going on here. Well, we can basically go over all the stats, and that's probably the best way to do it. I provided a little presentation here so that we can have a look at the stats and basically compare the stats to pick rates. And something that I personally see a lot in games is that killers that have low pick rates tend to have higher win rates because the people who play them are like the one-trick ponies. They only main that killer. Whereas killers that have high pick rates, you would expect to have lower win rates. So what we should do is sort this data based on kill rate, based on all MMRs right now, and see what outliers we see. So all MMRs, you can see that Wesker is a crazy big outlier with a 16% pick rate, far above anyone else. And this makes sense because September, Wesker's only just come out. He's a killer that a lot of people are playing right now because they're fans of Resident Evil. But he is performing way above what he should be, a 63% win rate, which probably says that one of two things. One is that behavior made an error in rebalancing Wesker's hitbox. Maybe they made it too big, but it also says another thing. Survivors haven't necessarily learnt how to counter Wesker yet. So there's a couple of things there we need to keep in mind with that. However, my theory is that killers with low pick rates should have higher win rates. Well, you can see that in potentially the fact that Freddy here has a just a 1% pick rate, Pig with a 2% pick rate, Pinhead with a 2% pick rate. So it makes a little bit of sense there for some of these killers like Freddy, Pinhead, and Onryo who have low pick rates, Pig as well. But there's actually something that links all of those killers together, potentially more so. And that is the fact that they all have inbuilt slowdown. Pinhead has his cube. Onryo has her TVs and Condemned. Freddy has, I suppose, the wake up mechanic, which is considered a slowdown. Pig has a very obvious slowdown in the fact that she can put a bear trap on you. Onryo, very surprising. She actually has a 3% pick rate, which is more than Pinhead, more than Freddy, more than Pig, more than Plague, more than Dredge. It's the same as Spirit. You're as likely to go up against an Onryo as you are a Spirit, which is a very surprising statistic to learn. And that whole low pick rate equals high win rate thing doesn't really work when you look at killers like Twins, who at all MMRs has the lowest pick rate at just over 1% and ends up placing very low on the graph here. So let's sort this by pick rates now and see exactly what we see. You know, you can see Twins all the way down there at the bottom. She does have a pretty good win rate, you know, just under 60% at all MMRs. But the crazy thing is that Wesker is literally being picked twice as much as Huntress, the next most picked killer, and is the highest win rate killer on this graph. It just doesn't make any sense when you think about it. All MMRs isn't necessarily a great thing to go off of, right? It literally includes everyone. It includes someone who's played the game for 5 minutes. It includes someone who's played the game for 6,000 hours. So let's go by top 5% MMR, because those are the people who play the game more regularly. So potentially via that, we can have a better understanding at balance. Instead of staying on this too long, let's just sort it by win rate immediately. Wesker remains the #1 killer, as we saw on our tier list earlier, with a whopping 25% pick rate. 1/4 of every Dead by Daylight game is Wesker, and out of 1/4 of every Dead by Daylight game, Wesker gets 66% kills in his match. That is almost a 3K in every match. I think at that stage, you probably will argue that Wesker is overperforming to a massive amount, because that means 1 in 4 players can play Wesker and outperform everything. Now, we do know from previous data drops by behavior that they do not count games where there are DCs. So potentially that is skewing data against killers like a Nurse and a Spirit and a Blight, who are more likely to frustrate the survivors into DCing. And that's potentially why they aren't as high on the win rate or the kill charts. They don't count the DCs as a kill for whatever reason on their data. But still, that is a crazy, crazy high stat to go for. And then you can see here that actually my theory around low pick rates starts to make a little bit more sense when you have killers like Twins and Hag here outperforming the majority of killers with their low win rate, pick rates, but still maintaining basically a 60% at this stage. So it makes more sense that the people who main those killers are actually performing at the top 5% MMR and performing very well with these killers. Not surprising to me, maybe surprising to you, maybe validating to you, is that every killer is performing above a 50% kill rate. Every killer is sitting at about 56% is the lowest for Trapper, up to a whopping 66%. So every killer is performing well. We are 100% in a killer-sided meta. Here's the pick rate sorting here. It's not surprising that Nurse and Legion and Huntress and Blight are high-picked killers. Maybe a bit surprising that Wraith is picked quite highly compared to the other killers and is still performing very well considering that. I actually put together a fun little experiment here. This is Otstarver's 6.2.0 tier list, where he rated every killer in Dead by Daylight and where they actually ended up on their win rates. As you can see, Ots was obviously wrong. 60 Onryo's down here at the bottom. Clearly she's a much better killer. I've been saying it for a long time. No, I'm joking. And this is the raw data in case you want to do your own stuff with it. You can grab the raw data here. What I find really interesting is killers like Mastermind, who is just ridiculously outperforming everyone. And that is crazy to think about. But I think the fun thing that's come out of this is that we get to put together essentially a behavior approved tier list, which puts Sadako at the top of the tier list, and it puts Nurse at the bottom of the tier list. And in behavior's defense, all right? In behavior's defense, they do say that they do not take kill rates and pick rates in isolation when it comes to balancing killers. Because if they did, we would see massive buffs for Nurse, and we would see massive nerfs for Sadako. Where in reality, what we have actually seen is nerfs for Nurse, and Sadako receiving no love whatsoever, which may be because she is performing much higher than people are anticipating. Guys, is there any conclusions you can take from that? I think the most obvious conclusion is that at mid-range, or MMR is really the word I'm looking for here, the killers that do have inbuilt slowdown tend to be performing the best. Pinhead, Onryo, Freddy, Pig, Plague. Dredge doesn't have inbuilt slowdown, but you know, he definitely has a timer mechanic, which maybe is just enough to push people off. Wesker actually does have inbuilt slowdown, by the way. Wesker's kit is stacked, which is potentially why he's outperforming. He has a dash mechanic, which is quite easy to pick up eventually. You can use it at windows very effectively. You can also use it at pallets very effectively. You don't have to grab survivors outside of that to be effective with Wesker. But when you do hit a survivor with Wesker, they get the infection on them, which a survivor then has to spend time getting rid of. Also, if they don't get rid of it, they get one shot down. Also, what was the other thing with Wesker that I've just forgot? I suppose it's just the fact that they have to get the spray. If they don't, they get in trouble, which also makes him very good at tunneling. Oh, it's the hindered was what I was forgetting. Thank you, chat. He also has an 8% hindered on top of that. It goes from 5% to 8%. He's a stacked killer. And he is basically the best killer in Dead by Daylight right now, based on the data. So I'll put that tier list on the screen one more time. This is the tier list based on top MMR and just organized based on the kill rates. It makes a bit of sense, really, actually, when you think about it. But I'm not sure I would consider any of the killers that are Nurse, Blight, Spirit lower rating than these guys if I was to do it based on my actual thoughts and feelings on balance. Anyway, guys, I just want to share that with you and also put together the pick rates to try and give some context clues to these things. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll catch you on the next video.